Okay. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us today. This forum was put together for all of us to talk about the PRO Act, to learn more about it, and to start generating momentum for the fight ahead of us in this country to make the PRO Act a reality. So I want to thank all of you for being a part of this today. My name is Mario Salento. I'm the president of the New York State AFL-CIO. It's great to see such a large turnout from my labor family today. First, let me just say I am really honored today to be joined by my co-host. She's a true friend of the labor movement and working men and women, not just in New York State, but across this country. Senator Kristen Gillibrand. Senator, thank you for co-hosting this event today.
Oh, thank you, Mario. I'm delighted to be here.
We also have with us Mike Foster, who was a lead organizer for the RWDSU on the Amazon campaign in Alabama. Mike, I want to thank you for joining us today as well. And I just want to welcome everybody today, because this is such an important topic, an important piece of legislation that we have a chance to really get done here. The reason why Senator Gillibrand and I asked you all to join us today is because the PRO Act is really a generational opportunity to level the playing field for working men and women in this country. We want to talk about the PRO Act, why labor law reform is so desperately needed in this country, and most importantly, how we can begin to mobilize and play an active role here in New York in helping to make the PRO Act the law of the land. Because even though we have the support of Senator Gillibrand and Senator Schumer as the largest state labor movement in the country, there's a lot we can still do to set a tone for the labor movement in the other 49 states, which we so often do here in New York. So to start, we know a couple of things. We know that nearly 60 million people say they would join a union today if they could. The problem, as it's always been, is that business lobbyists, union-busting attorneys and CEOs, they have worked night and day for years to keep workers' power at bay, to silence the collective voice of millions of working people who want to join a union. And they've done this in a lot of different ways. They've weakened the National Labor Relations Act. They've attacked collective bargaining rights. Under current law, the penalties against employers who illegally fire or retaliate against their workers who try to form a union are really laughable. It's sad, but laughable. That's why employers, they routinely retaliate against pro-union workers. They know there aren't any real consequences. And breaking the law for them is simply the cost of doing business. In fact, and this is truly amazing, employers spend nearly $340 million a year hiring union avoidance consultants. Think about that. That's every single year just to silence the voices of working people. Again, it's outrageous. If they had put that money back into their companies, we wouldn't even be having this conversation today. But that's where the PRO Act, it really comes in. It would empower workers to exercise their freedom to organize and to bargain. It would ensure that workers can reach a first contract quickly after a union is recognized. It would end the employer's practice of punishing striking workers by hiring permanent replacements. It would strengthen the National Labor Relations Board and allow it to penalize employers who retaliate against collective bargaining. And it would repeal right-to-work laws, which are divisive. They are racist laws that were created during the Jim Crow era. They lead to lower wages and fewer benefits, more dangerous workplaces. We know that we now have more right-to-work states than non-right-to-work states. And the difference in terms of earnings in those states are truly incredible. We know that when the labor movement is stronger, it lifts the economy as a whole for everyone. Everyone has a better life, better wages, benefits, conditions of employment. And I'd ask you to think about this before we really get underway. Union members make, on average, $10,500 a year more than non-union workers. That's about $200 more a week. It's a little bit more than $200 a week. Think about what the average family could do with $10,500 more a year to support themselves and their families. Think about that for a moment. That is what we are fighting for everyone to have that opportunity. So we have a chance now. It's a unique opportunity in time to make a difference. And that's why we asked all of you to join us today. Now, I'm going to stop talking. I'm sure everyone is ready to move on. But I do want to say this. I want to introduce my co-host today. But more importantly, she's truly a friend to all working men and women in this country. I have had the pleasure of knowing Senator Gillibrand for many years. I've had the honor to work with her on so many issues. I would say first and foremost, Senator, was the James Adroga Health and Compensation Act, which is still continuously bringing desperately needed health care and compensation to our 9/11 first responders, their survivors, their families. The senator led that effort. I can't tell you how many times over the years, so many of us in New York and so many of us at this forum today, we had to go to Washington over the years, have rallies, have press conferences. The senator, she wasn't just a part of those, she led that fight. And Senator, I want to thank you for that. Because it was just incredible, your dedication to that cause and the good that it brought to these heroes. We continue to fight side by side with the senator to bring banking into underserved communities using our postal service. We're working together to enact the buy local, hire local legislation, and certainly over the past year, just working together on all of the various relief programs for all New Yorkers whose lives, whose livelihoods have been endangered by COVID-19. And I will just say this, each and every time that we work with the senator, she doesn't only participate in those fights, she leads them because she believes in our shared cause. She believes that what she is fighting for will help working people have a better life. And at the end of the day, I've always said this, what greater way to live your life than to vote it to helping others? And Senator, I want to thank you for standing up for the labor movement and for working people. I want to thank you for standing side by side and shoulder to shoulder with the labor movement on more fights than we can probably both remember. And I want to thank you for leading us to victory on so many of those fights. But most importantly, Senator, I want to thank you for leading with your heart, for leading for what you believe in. And really, on behalf of the 2.5 million members that we have in New York, it's an honor to call you my friend. So brothers and sisters, it is my privilege to introduce to you a true friend, a true champion to working men and women, Senator Kristen Gillibrand.
Thank you, Mario. You're wonderful. I truly love working with you. I love working with our union leadership, especially in New York State. We have some of the most effective, extraordinary leaders that I can think of. I want to recognize a couple of them that are on the call. Gary LaBarber and Stuart Applebaum are two that I work with all the time, and they really do make a difference. I also want to thank our RWDSU organizer, Mike Foster, and all the central labor councils and area labor federations from across the state that are joining us. I just appreciate all that you do, Mario, on behalf of AFL-CIO. It truly matters, and it creates a voice that's powerful, and we need that voice today in Washington. Before we started, Mario and I were just talking about the State of the Union, and I was really, really pleased with so much of the things that he said. So I feel like we're off to a very, very good start. Yesterday, we recognized Workers' Memorial Day and the 15th anniversary of the Occupational Safety and Health Act, legislation that only exists because of the tireless effort that unions made to actually make it happen. Everyone benefits from that victory in the fight for safer working conditions. That's what the labor movement does, and you elevate the voices and the needs of working people, and you make our country a much stronger country. We're seeing that today with all of the tremendous efforts you're doing to organize companies like Amazon, which is desperately needed and extremely important. As we focus on rebuilding the American economy, I think we cannot lose sight of the fact that American workers are the true engine of the economy and the heart of our communities. And so we have to keep them in mind as we rebuild and as we make the country stronger. I thought it was really important that in President Biden's remarks last night, he really did lay that out. He said, Wall Street didn't build this country, the middle class built this country, and unions built the middle class. So it's true that the only way we're going to be able to build our economy back is through unions, and we need to have a level playing field. So we have to make sure that people are allowed to collectively bargain and that they can have unions represent them. Because this pandemic has truly exposed the difference in society. It's been a greater divide between haves and have-nots. Nearly 500 people in this economy became billionaires last year, while so many families across the country were struggling just to make ends meet. So we need to know what we're up against and why the work that you do is so vital. Our biggest priority is your biggest priority, which is passing the PRO Act. It couldn't be more important. That legislation is long overdue, but it will strengthen our federal labor laws in three important ways. First, it's going to implement safeguards against violations of workers' rights by punishing employers for violations and supporting workers who face retaliation for exercising those rights. And it also authorizes a private right of action, which is really necessary to make sure we can sue when workers' rights have been violated. Second, it supports workers' rights to join together, obviously, to negotiate for better working conditions, have secondary boycotts, collect fair share fees, and modernize the union election process and facilitate an initial collective bargaining agreement. So those reforms are really important. And then last, it would address the ambiguous wording that allows employers to misclassify their employees as supervisors and independent contractors and other BS, and it increases the transparency between workers and management. So I'm really proud to support that legislation, and I really think that with Biden in the White House, we can get it done. I do think we also have a huge opportunity with Biden's infrastructure investments. The fact that we're doing the American Jobs Plan to rebuild our hard and soft infrastructure. One of the bills that I've been trying to get as how we do it is the Build Local, Hire Local bill, which is basically modeled on how New York built its infrastructure 75 years ago. If you remember the era of Robert Moses, a lot of our infrastructure was built in a way that disproportionately harmed low-income neighborhoods. So a neighborhood like the Bronx has highways crisscrossing it, which is one of the reasons why they have the highest asthma rate in our state. If you look at Buffalo, you look at Syracuse, Rochester, even Albany, lots of communities of color and low-income communities were cut off from downtowns and cut off from communities by how we built our highways. And so every one of those upstate cities is having a debate about how to do it, whether it's I-81 or 787 or Route 33. All of them are being reimagined in a way that restores the community. And the goal is to make sure local workers get trained to do the jobs, and that means apprenticeship programs. So it's the best way to create more building, construction, trade workers, more plumbers, more pipe fitters, anyone who's part of rebuilding our infrastructure. It's how we get the next generation of workers to come into the union movement. We also have to recognize, and this I think is important for your membership, to recognize that there's more than one kind of infrastructure. There's hard infrastructure and soft infrastructure. We're very comfortable talking about hard infrastructure, roads, bridges, sewers, high-speed rail, rural broadband, healthcare, IT. Anything that's technical, we see as infrastructure, but there's this soft infrastructure that is the infrastructure that allows families to actually go to work and thrive. It's our schools. It's having affordable, high-quality daycare. It's about having a universal pre-K system or a paid leave system. So if you have a family member who's ill, you don't lose your job. You can take the time off to care for that loved one or care for a new baby or care for yourself. So we want to make sure that the soft infrastructure is part of this conversation, because I promise you it will allow more workers to be in the workplace. It'll allow you to get more parents into the unions, particularly women. It will allow for greater diversity and more equity. So I think just to keep in mind, those are things that really do matter. One of the bills that President Biden talked about last night was my bill, national paid leave. And, I know this is often overlooked, but I can tell you, if you have the flexibility to take a month or 2 or 3 off because your spouse is sick, or you yourself are ill, or your child is sent home from school because of COVID, to not lose that job really makes a difference. It keeps people from sliding into poverty and unemployment. And so we want your support and help in making sure that we fight for all infrastructure for this next bill. And then just last, I want to just mention that I really believe that we have an opportunity here to rebuild our entire economy and how this country works. Unions were at the forefront of every accomplishment for working people, starting 50 years ago with OSHA, and it's still true today. So I know that these are things we can do together, and I would love to walk hand in glove with you guys on doing it, because your advocacy and your leadership is not only powerful, but it's effective. And I would love to keep working with you guys on this whole array of issues to create a better economy, stronger families, and stronger communities. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Senator. And the great part about this is that, as you opened with, your agenda is really the agenda of the labor movement, of working men and women. And that's what I think has made us such great partners over the years. So thank you. Thank you for that. I now have the opportunity to introduce someone who I know longer in this labor movement than anyone else, and that is the president of the RWDSU, Stuart Applebaum, who's going to introduce Mike Foster. Let me just say about Stuart, everybody on this forum today knows Stuart. I will just say this. I don't think there's anyone more dedicated and committed to this movement. Stuart, I just want to say that on behalf of everyone here today, when it comes to the fight that took place in Alabama regarding Amazon, that regardless of that outcome, we thank you in this labor movement for what you did, for setting a course for the future. And I truly believe, Stuart, that when we look back on that campaign years from now, it's going to be seen as a groundbreaking effort that led to organizing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of workers across this country, because now they will have the courage to fight for what they believe in. So, Stuart, thank you for that. Thank you for your friendship, your leadership, and brothers and sisters, President of the RWDSU, Stuart Applebaum.
Mario, thank you very much. It's really good to be with everyone today, and especially with you and Senator Gillibrand, because the two of you are among my heroes. And we really appreciate your leadership in so many areas. The campaign at Amazon in Bessemer, Alabama is far from over. We're demanding a new election. The National Labor Relations Board will be holding a hearing on this next Friday. And we think that we've accomplished a lot already, and there's still more we can do. Amazon is transforming industry after industry in this country. It's becoming an increasingly dominant force in our economy, and we cannot allow it to go unchallenged. There were a lot of extraordinary people working on the campaign in Bessemer, people who poured their heart and their soul into building real power for the workers there. But there was nobody with a bigger heart and who brought more passion to this work than Mike Foster, who is now known around the world as Big Mike. Mike has been an RWDSU member for 19 years. He joined the RWDSU while working at a poultry plant the union had organized in Alabama. And he is now a vice president of his local union. Mike is a gifted organizer. And for a lot of workers in Bessemer, Mike was the face of the union. And Mike, I want to thank you for all that you've done and that you will continue to do. And with great people like Mike Foster in this effort, I know that we're going to be able to continue to move mountains. My brother, my friend, another one of my heroes, Mike Foster. Big Mike. Mike, you're on mute.
Man, thanks for the great introduction, Stuart. Man, kind of made me feel kind of good a little bit. Thank you for that. But I just like to elaborate on some of the things that Stuart was saying. The fight is far from over. I haven't initially stopped working yet. I'm still reaching out to workers, still checking on workers, the progress of what's going on in the facility, what the talk is about, just letting the people know that we're still here. that they could continue to trust us and believe in us, that the fight is not over with. And you know, I just feel amazing because we have all came together, regardless of race and color, and we're here to demonstrate that coming together is power. And that's something that we need to illustrate across the world. We need to let people know that the race that matter is the human race. And we need to continue as human beings to come together to be able to show these billion-dollar companies that we will not be muted, that we will be heard, that fight is still out here, to let the people know who's going through the struggle, that is help out here, that it's actual people like everybody that's on this panel today. We care. We literally care about the next man, about our neighbors, about our neighborhoods and our schools. So this is where union is so important. And this is the message that I'm trying to put out and let people know, that unions is important, to be able to have a voice, to be able to be at the table, to allow people to hear what's going on, because nobody knew what was going on inside of Amazon until we came to Bessemer, Alabama. All we seen was the packages showing up on the doorstep. All we seen was the commercial come by with the smile across the screen. Nobody knew what was going on behind the scenes. And I thank God that the union came and exposed these things, not just in Bessemer, but around the country. People are just coming out the woodworks because they're feeling confident to know that, hey, we got to fight, that somebody is standing behind us, somebody is listening, somebody cares. And I mean, we have this type of thing going on everywhere. So the fight is just not about Amazon and Bessemer, but it's all through the country, all through this world. And it's our turn to stand up and let these people know that we are here and we're going to help.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mike. And thank you for what you've begun. And where this fight takes us, I know is going to be a success down the road. So thank you for that, Mike. And thank you, Stuart. We have time for maybe a couple of questions for the senator. The first question is for Senator, from someone you know, I'm sure, very well, Gary LaBarber, the president of the New York State Building Trades Council, a truly great leader and an all-around good guy, right, Gary? So, so with that, brothers and sisters, my honor to introduce Gary LaBarber.
Well, thank you, Mario. Very kind remarks. And it is good to be here with everyone. And it is certainly a pleasure, as always, to be with you, Senator. It's wonderful to see you again today. You know, you made a lot of, I think, very accurate comments in your opening remarks. And I'd like to just ask you about the idea that, you know, the importance that you recognize in the president's speech last night about rebuilding the economy. And I think we know that rebuilding the economy translates to creating family-sustaining jobs, and family-sustaining jobs are created by unions. And, you know, what I'd like to ask you about a little bit, if you could speak and maybe give us a little more insight, is the issue of the infrastructure and the American Jobs Plan. And perhaps maybe you could shed light on how you see this process unfolding, where you see the opposition. I think we know where the opposition comes from. And will this wind up being done through reconciliation? And how do you see this moving forward? I'm sure all very interested to hear your thoughts.
Yep. So I do think it will move through reconciliation. I think it's possible to have a small infrastructure bill with Republicans, but I don't think it's worth it, because it would be better to just do one large infrastructure bill and pass it at one time, and then move on to other good bipartisan stuff we can work on. Like, for example, today they did an environmental bill on a bipartisan basis. It was small and targeted, but it was perfect. And that got passed, and that got some Republican votes. So I expect that we will use the 51 vote threshold through the reconciliation process to get a large multi-layered infrastructure bill done. I think it will include the hard infrastructure that we talked about, as well as the soft infrastructure like paid leave and affordable daycare. And I think it's better to do it in one fell swoop, because it's important. If we don't, all that other stuff's going to get left off, and there'll even be major infrastructure projects that get left off, because I think Republicans only want to do something very modest. So my view is put it all in together, do one vote, and then keep working on the other bipartisan appropriation bills that normally go through the Senate and the House, and do that in regular order. But I would do this next Recovery Act, this Build Back Better plan, do it in one vote under reconciliation. And I'm optimistic we can do it, because as the president laid out last night, it's really diverse bunch of priorities, and it's all about Made in America. It's about building the middle class. It's about blue collar jobs. It's about supporting and strengthening unions. And I'm optimistic that we could do it, and we can hold the coalition of all Democrats.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Gary. Our next question is from Clifton Johnson. He's with the American Postal Workers Union. Clifton, the floor is yours.
Hey, yeah, thank you very much, Mario. Good afternoon, Senator Gillibrand. My name is Clifton Johnson. I am a proud member of the American Postal Workers Union and a postal clerk working at the Freeport Post Office in New York. I have approximately 13 to 14 years to go until my retirement, so I am deeply concerned about the viability and future of the United States Postal Service. Passage of the United States Postal Service Fairness Act and repealing the pre-funding mandate is a legislative priority for the American Postal Workers Union. Senator, can you kindly advise us of your position regarding the United States Postal Service Fairness Act?
I fully support it. I've told Senator Schatz to sign me on as a co-sponsor. And I think it is long past time when we get rid of this priority that the U.S. Postal Service, unlike any other entity, has to prepay its retirement costs. It's outrageous. And it's one of the reasons why I think the post office has had difficulty staying in business and staying solvent. I also want to put forward another bill idea that I think would be great. It's called postal banking. And the reason why I support this is because it's already authorized for the U.S. Postal Service. It was in place from the turn of the century to 1966. It helped us recover from the Great Depression, World War I, and World War II. And the post office already provides $20 billion worth of money orders every year. So they already are handling money and doing the job of banks. What you would be adding is savings, checking, and microloans. And most interesting, it would create revenue for $9 billion every year for the post office. That matters. It also deals with the fact that the COVID epidemic has really created the divide, the economic divide between working people and those who are wealthy. And this would allow 30% of New Yorkers and Americans who are unbanked or underbanked to get basic banking services so they don't fall prey to predatory lenders, payday loans, and other predatory practices. It's very expensive to be poor in America. So having just a basic bank account will make a lot of difference. And then last, I think DeJoy is horrid, and we do need to get rid of him. So I am very much focused on making sure we fill the Board of Governor nominees so that they can vote him out.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. And thank you, Clifton. Senator, just one last thing. Is there something that we can do as a labor movement here in New York, 2.5 million strong, to help you with the PRO Act?
You know, I think what's so important is the activism of your members. I think what we just saw in hearing testimony about what's been happening with Amazon just speaks volumes about what's possible when people are fired up and ready to work. I think Mike Foster is a perfect example of people who can lead the charge in advocating in the local arena to garner support for big ideas. And so I think the best thing that all of you can do is really speak out about it, use social media to post about it, really push your senators and House members in other states to support it, help your colleagues lobby for it. You're lucky me and Chuck are 100% all in. And I think most of our delegation is, except for maybe a couple. So lobby those last few members, I think, is important to get unanimity amongst all New Yorkers, but really pushing it out to red and purple states too. I think it matters. So I just keep lifting up your voices, because your voices are strong and very effective.
Thank you, Senator. And so that's the questions, the amount of time we have for the questions today. Before we leave, there are a couple of things we can do to be involved. Latching on to what the Senator just mentioned, you can encourage your union brothers and sisters in other states, as well as your family, your friends, your retirees that you know in other states. We can get involved first by using the National AFL-CIO's ProAct hotline. And you'll get all this information. We'll send it to everyone on this call in various ways, but the hotline is 866-832-1560, 866-832-1560. The hotline will connect each person directly with their United States Senator across the country. And then once they're in contact, again, you should urge everyone that you know, your brothers and sisters in your union in other states, or your family or friends, to urge their senators to support the PRO Act, as just as Senator Gillibrand said, just as she and Senator Schumer have already done here in New York. Second, we will be posting graphics on the state AFL-CIO's Facebook page that you can share with your friends and your family. Our Facebook address is at NYSAFL-CIO. Again, you'll get information on that. And third, as the Senator said, just continue to be involved. Just continue to talk any way that you can, making sure that our voices are heard. And the reason for that, again, is this. I'll leave us on this note. We have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get historic legislation passed. I can't emphasize that enough. Legislation that will forever alter the landscape and level the playing field for working men and women, for organized labor in this country. To, as Stuart said, as Mike said, to provide a voice for those who've been silenced forever. Now is the time to act. Now is the time to make a difference. That's why we asked you all here today. I want to thank Senator Gillibrand. Senator, again, thank you for co-hosting with me today. Thank you for today and everything you've done. Do you have anything you'd like to add before we go?
Just a thank you again. You guys have been tremendous to work with, and our work is just beginning. And to have an ally in the White House is going to make all the difference. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I want to thank Mike Foster from the RWDSU, and Stuart and Gary and Clifton for joining us today. I want to thank everyone who joined us today. Let's just get to work on the PRO Act. Let's make this happen. Everyone, thank you. Be safe, be well, hang in there.